You're listening to the Digital Deep Dive, where we tackle the newest trends, strategies, and pain points shaping growth across the digital landscape. From Amazon and D2C to international expansion, join our host and e-commerce leaders across multiple industries for in-depth discussions on how to maximize your brands in the digital arena. Now, here's your host, Aaron Conant.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Digital Deep Dive. I'm your host, Aaron Conant, and today got a great friend back to talk about generative AI. So Todd Hassenfelt, just been a great friend, partner, supporter of everything that we're doing here at the Digital Deep Dive and helping educate the digital community as a whole. But, Todd, you want to jump in again, quick on a brief intro on yourself, your role, company, all that fun stuff, and then we'll jump into the conversation.
No, thank you for having me back, and thank you for everything you and BWG do for the community to help all of us learn and connect. Todd Hassenfelt, I'm the e-commerce director of growth strategy and planning at Colgate-Palmolive. I'm part of the global digital organization under our chief digital officer, Brigitte King. We are tasked with digitally transforming Colgate-Palmolive and changing mindsets. My remit, amongst many things, but goes around digital shelf, e-com sales and share, and multiple other topics. And, today I know we're going to talk about generative AI. Such a new topic. I will say, my thoughts on this one are my own, or reading industry articles or talking with industry people, not necessarily just Colgate-Palmolive, but what a topic that we're going to dive into here.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast. So I think if we just kick off from the standpoint of, we were just doing a dinner right on Monday night, and it was about, composable architecture, and still part of it goes sideways into like a chat GPT. And that's only part of generative AI. But do you want to just kind of give us your brief take? Because this is what I love, is like bringing on somebody in the industry that's not sitting inside of an AI company that's trying to sell and is going to speak at the, 80,000 foot level and nobody's going to understand. Let's do a deep dive, but, keep it at a level where, I don't know. I'll kick it over to you. I'd love to hear how you look at it.
Yeah, I think to keep it to the we'll call it the layman's level, so we can all kind of understand this and connect people to it, or figure out how to use it. Chat GPT is back in November when they launched it, is what kind of started the masses recognizing the potential of generative AI. And generative AI is things that can generate images, text, sounds. It's kind of the whole thing. Chat GPT at the time was part of that. And so people started using it, right? And we had the massive adoption, some of the fastest within 5 days or 1 month, going from 1 million users to 100 million. And people started talking and saying, wow, what can this do? And you see, put a prompt in or a question, and you saw the speed of a response come out. Since just in the last couple of weeks, GPT-4 has come out. And I think there's a nuance there. It's not called Chat GPT because the version from November, the old version now, only a few
which
months
is a
ago.
testament to how fast things are changing.
Exactly. But the old version only, at least for this one, only produced text or a chat, where now GPT-4, so many different ways it's more advanced and breaking records on even the test, whether it's a bar exam, going from Chat GPT was scoring in the bottom 10%. GPT-4 is going to top 10%. But GPT-4 is doing more than just text. It's also doing images. So maybe combining some of the DALL-E 2 that's out there, or Midjourney, that create more images. So it's more that it can do. And so I think that nuance of taking the chat out of it and it's just GPT-4 is the reason for it. But I think why it's so exciting, just overall, or one of the reasons, people are always gravitating towards convenience, right? Now I want to be very clear. There's a lot of risk, and we'll talk about that. But there's wrong answers. There's things, as I call, hallucinations, where it kind of goes off kilter and produces results that are a little scary. But from the speed of it and convenience and the potential of work efficiency, let's say, or creativity support. Um, I think this is why people are gravitating towards it, because it does have the potential, if done right, and you mitigate risk and manage risk, uh, to really make us all more efficient in a lot of different ways. And there's a lot of different use cases we can talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I like that because, when you talk about, if we talk about Chat GPT, the original is how everybody was using it was, oh, look at it can write me a paper,
Yeah.
right? It can answer my question. But in reality, right, it was the answer engine, right? I covered this a couple podcasts ago that, you have Google, which is a search engine. And then you have, GPT, which is an answer engine. And so people were typing it in there and they were getting written answers back. But then it started to evolve really quickly where people are having to figure out, logistics planning, routing around Los Angeles during rush hour. And it's figuring it out. And it rapidly expanded outside of that. And yet I think people's focus up until, GPT-4 was, hey, it's going to give me an answer. It's going to write my, entrance exam to law school or whatever, my, high schooler is going to write his year-end paper, right? We used to spend time in the, going through the library at school. I'll date myself a little bit, trying to pull together, 4 different sources.
The card catalog and encyclopedias. I get
That's
it.
right.
That's right.
So true. I think my parents actually have the encyclopedia set they bought when I was a kid. They still have it. But yeah, we would go through and we'd try to find it and then we'd try to fit it in. This is just doing it instantaneously, but it's doing it at a much, much more in-depth level. And now if it's blending in video, if it's blending in images, it's generally creating brand new content. And that's what's super, super interesting. But when you think about it from, where you sit, like use cases, I think that's what people want to know. People know it's out there. People know maybe they should be looking at it. Maybe they should be using it. But nobody wants to waste any time. We're in the digital space. We have 150 things to do. We have time to do 30 of them. And so when this new thing comes out and I know I should be looking at it, well, I just don't know where to start. And so how should people be looking at it for like use cases? Like what's the best one? Is there a best one? Is there 10 best ones?
Yeah, it's going to depend on your company. And I think no matter, before we start jumping into some of them, again, all use cases, you should be, especially if you're a brand, working very closely with your legal team, and working very closely with your IT team, right? Hopefully you're doing that anyways. But with this, definitely, be conferring with them and doing it collectively.
Well,
But
let me jump in there really quick.
yeah.
Because that's what happened like on Amazon with AMS back in the day. And you had all these other smaller companies who didn't have massive marketing, legal, finance teams. And so you had all these brands come in and destroy it. That's what happened in direct consumer, right? These smaller companies that had removed a ton of the restrictions and, by way of naturally by their size, the liability is much smaller, right? If I'm a organic toothpaste startup, right, his liability is a lot smaller than where you're sitting. But isn't there also that side of, I want to do this as fast as I can because I don't want to miss out on that first mover advantage, or the risk just that big? Like, I don't know. It's just something that comes to mind because so many times, mid to large size companies get left behind. And that's when these small startups just go through and brands just go through and destroy it because they've got the flexibility to do it.
Yeah, this is the ultimate balancing act of just what you're describing, right? The balancing the opportunity with the risk mitigation, because saying we're just going to wait till this all gets figured out, complete competitive disadvantage, no matter what your size, right? And yet to go, let's say on the opposite extreme with no risk assessment, no risk mitigation, no talking to your lawyers, you could have a lot of copyright infringement cases. You could have, depending if you have it like live on a chatbot or something, it could offend some of your consumers. This could really go sideways. So there's a risk to it. So yeah, I think every company is going to be different and by size, but I think, as you kind of mentioned, maybe mid and large size, tend to move smaller or slower than the smaller companies. I think the potential upside here and use cases, even many of the mid to large companies are saying we can't stand still on this one, right? To your point, the news is, even if you're not hands on keyboard and into this and going to be applying the use cases, you are hearing about it every day, multiple times a day in multiple formats, right? And you're probably going, no matter what level you are, you're probably going to be answering to a C-suite, to a board on what is our generative AI strategy? What are we doing, right? Because you can't ignore this. This isn't something maybe like retail media 5 years ago. Oh, that's a fad. It's very wrong, right? But also I think it's even different, let's say, than the metaverse last year, the last 18 months, where I think the road to success or is shorter with generative AI than it is with metaverse, yet the risks are probably greater with generative AI as well.
Oh, for sure. And also the reach of it, right? So the metaverse, was I think it was kind of limited to the digital professionals, and it was fun to talk about, and, but it wasn't directly applicable to pretty much every company that's out there, right? It's just the reality is not every company was looking at the metaverse. They're like, oh, that's neat. Or they might talk about it in passing, but GPT-4, generative AI, any company can use, literally any company. And therefore it just has, I think it's the implications then are why it's showing up and why you hear about it 4 or 5 times a day, where the metaverse, you'd randomly hear about it if Google or if Meta was going to dump more money into it, then it made the news. Other than that, you weren't faced with it every day, but now it's multiple times a day. You're hearing about the new uses of it and the new launches of it and how people are using it. You see it all over LinkedIn. It's just the broad reaching, I think, that has so many different implications.
Agree. And listen, there's still use cases for the metaverse, right? It's in a down cycle right now, obviously, compared to the last 18 months. But I think the difference, very, very top line with the metaverse, it was very much about creativity and hardware, right? The Oculus or the huge goggles in essence. And those were barriers of entry because, I mean, the creativity in most companies isn't there at that level yet, right? For a metaverse where generative AI, this is about convenience. And in essence, you can use what you have right now. You can use your computer. There's now the shortcut to put it on your iPhone. Both Microsoft and Google are going to very soon be incorporated into their Office suite of products. It is going to be everywhere without necessarily buying new equipment or having to. There is a creative aspect to this, but it's really, can you ask questions? Can you ask prompts? And yes, there will be a skill level to that too of what you get out of it. But again, that road to success is so much shorter than it is, than a metaverse use case, let's say.
Oh, for sure. So where do people start? So we've jumped through the legal issues, knowing that we've got legal approval, that everything's got to be approved, right? We've got regulatory approval that everything's going to be approved. Is it creating content? I mean, is it creating copy? Is it creating imagery? Is it creating ads?
Yes, all the above. And since I talked about in the past with you, digital shelf, I think there are so many use cases on the digital shelf for this. And you think about just, okay, in ChatGPT, look at, and this is something I've done myself, but you can take a link to a PDP and prompt it to say, give me the best and worst themes from all the reviews on this product or on this PDP. And you have it in 5 seconds, right? And now you can take a look at, all right, what are mine or other products? what are people saying? And you can even have it say, give it to me in the exact quotes. So you can have the exact quotes of the top themes, right? You can even put in there the most upvoted reviews. Again, it all comes down to the quality of the prompt. But I think you can assess ratings and reviews really quick, a part of the digital shelf. You can look at your content, whether it's your titles or your bullet points, and say, is this optimized with SEO? Or the top keywords. Does it, if you're looking at it even from a digital shelf quantitative standpoint, and you're supposed to have a certain number of words or characters, it can assess that and then make the recommendation. Again, always going through legal, but it can make the recommendation of how to approve it. Or you can take, if you want to look at your bullet points, or let's say you're below the full content, or A plus, or even for some of your images, image copy, you could take long form papers that have been written about you, let's say in the press or wherever, and have it summarized to a bullet point or to an A plus product description, something like that, or a 9-word or less image phrase that you can put on there. So I think digital shelf is a huge part of this. That's more copy and word. I think when you think about the images, yes, you can prompt different things. And again, it should never be prompt pictures up, created, generated, and you post it. But you can have a lot of different thoughts of either, what brands would you want to maybe partner with in a collaboration. You could take your, going back to the ratings and reviews, take your reviews and generate images from what people are saying, and have that as part of now your image carousel or things that you use for social. So the image piece of it is, while there's still work to be done on the images, right? You can get some really scary or ugly ones, but at least it gives you potential creativity there. Then I think let's take it out of digital shelf, let's take it out of kind of images and go to some other departments. If I'm in investor relations, you could use a summarize, the text, the summarize of the text. Take transcripts from earnings calls and have it summarize it to key themes, right? And now you could have a little better assessment of your category of products out there. I think, speaking of legal, from all the paperwork they have to deal with. And again, you have to, this is where the risk mitigation, what are you going to put in there? Make sure nothing's proprietary, anything like that. But, from a legal standpoint of summarizing documents, I mean, just a massive potential upside. And then if you're thinking about video, and I'm not recommending any, and just one that popped in my head right now, but something like Synthesia, where you could populate a script. It has, a person, call it a digital twin, not a real person, but they look like a real person. It's not a metaverse avatar. It's actually someone that looks like a person. They're just not real. They don't truly exist. They don't have a driver's license or passport. But you can do now, here's my script. I want to train my organization on this topic. And boom, now you can have that with 50 different languages, to go out to, let's say, 50 different countries with one script, right? Versus thinking of all the different editing, live video you'd have to do. So, I mean, these are just some. But I'm just trying to hone in on text, video, text, imagery, and video, and text, summarizing the text. I mean, so many different paths you could go down.
I mean, we if I'm running a large organization today, I am spending the next 3 months looking for a chief AI officer. That's literally what I'm doing, because what you just described is it can be used in every part of the company, literally every part of the company, right? Find discrepancies in finance, right? It's moving so fast. You're going to have somebody internal that's going to be guiding and looking, and they're probably going to have a team, because there's a million different ways to use it. What are the 10 most profitable we can hone in on right now? Next year is going to be 15. The next year is going to be 20.
Yeah.
And then it's going to blow into digital. I'm just thinking when it gets built into the back end of the direct consumer experience, right? And so we just did a full day event, and Michael Secor, who we've had on the podcast at 5 New Digital, he was talking a little bit about, like the blend of getting to the metaverse and how it's going to be immersive first, right? It's going to be this time where it's going to change how we interact with the 2-dimensional screen before we get to wearing goggles all day. Most people don't want to do that, right? But, it all then bled into personalization. And so if you think on the back end, if you have that AI that's looking at the person, I've logged in to, Nike.com, right? And I click on, I want to know more about this shoe. It can generate any image based on who I am and where I live and put it in context, right? Where it's going to be able to immediately create a new image and put it in front of me based on who I am. That's going to happen over and over again. And then we're going to get into these immersive experiences where it's going to be real time auto generating in front of you what it thinks you're most likely going to want to buy. And it's going to put it in front of you in the most appealing fashion based on who you are. And it'll mess up over time. Just like, I randomly get like a Pampers ad now, right? Even though, I've got 4 kids, but the youngest is 10 now. I just think that's funny. I don't care. Now you give me everywhere I go, it's all Pampers ad. It's a different story. But if you give me a decent ad, that's something I'm interested in, that's pretty cool. But we're going to get to a point where the limitation right now when we talk about personalization is in the back end, your PIM, your DAM, does it have the image that matches me in my customer segment? And if it doesn't, I don't get it. They get the closest match.
Yeah.
In the future, there's not going to be doing a closest match. It's going to do an exact match to me.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're having this conversation.
Right? Or even like, a pet food example, right? We Colgate-Palmolive has Hill's Pet Nutrition, and what happens if we could put your dog or cat on the bag, right? Or at least on the image that as you're scrolling through, right? Or the copy has your pet's name on it. Yeah, I mean,
just happens to have it. Don't get like ultra creepy, but we've got a mini golden doodle at home, right? And if you show that, that food in a mini golden doodle eating it, right? I can see now you and I sit on the inside, so we know how everything's connected, right? But most people are like, whoa, they got a mini golden doodle and it's the same name. I can see it on the collar, right? Because what have they done? They've gone out to our social media. They've looked at everything we've ever posted and they've stitched together us instantaneously and they know what to put there and it'll increase conversion.
Yeah, it's going to be different for every consumer, but there is going to be, I think Minority Report, the movie, is always the one people are like, I don't want that. But
do our kids want that? But do our kids want that?
I think it depends, right? I don't think it's. I mean, there's probably higher percentages. Obviously, I did see, eMarketer or Insider Intelligence has put out a lot of reports already on this kind of getting some perspective from people and looking at use cases and risk as well. But one of the surveys that they had put out was and this is just in the U.S. so it wasn't global necessarily, but would U.S. consumers be more or less likely to trust AI-generated influencer content, right? So maybe thinking of that Synthesia example, a format of video that would be on there, again, a person that doesn't exist but would look like a person. Or probably some of these examples I think could fall in that we're talking about. And what was interesting is it was almost 50-50, like, trust the same amount or more was about, 47, and then 53 for distrust a little more, or distrust a great deal more. And actually that was only like in the 40s. There was, I think 14% that said, I don't know yet. So, I think that's where, brands have to learn and iterate and evolve quickly. There's not one answer, but, again, I think just the scale, when you think about what could be produced, let's just think of images, or video content, the variations from one example or one really well-written prompt, if you can get 1,000 images in a minute versus what that would typically take months, if not longer, for let's say a traditional way, you can't not evaluate this and at least test and learn at the minimum. And again, this is not just human versus bot, right? Like, or generative AI. This is combined. Like, there always should be a human element from not only the prompt but the review to make sure it is appropriate, the legal piece of it. But I just think this will be a dividing line if some brands decide I'm not going to jump into this yet. I just think you fall so far behind, as things get going and people become, and brands become more comfortable with this potentially.
Yeah, I mean, right now, I mean, content is so expensive and everybody's looking, to tighten the belt up. And at the same time, though, we're saying, hey, you have to A, B, C, D, E, F, G test, right? Well, all of those tests, all of those require additional assets, and all of those assets cost money. And so you have to be looking at it from a winning aspect of, hey, how can I do more testing and learning? How many can I do more ABC testing? EFGHIJ, like at this point in time, it's nonstop testing and learning. And all of that requires additional content, additional imagery, and you have to generate it fast because you want to get results fast.
That's the thing, the personalization piece, right? Or even if, again, going back to digital shelf, if you're looking at it truly by what keywords are most searched by site, or what resonates the most with different audiences, and I think Visit is doing a great job of highlighting this of how one retailer's audience is different than another's, and what works from an image perspective. Yes, creative teams already are swamped, right? There's not a creative team out there is like, I'm looking for more things to do from everyone. But yeah, the variation piece and the just how you could amplify the original work into all these different variations is really exciting if it can be done right.
Yeah. I'm just thinking right now, if I'm a CDP, I'm trying to partner with somebody who's able to generate that amount of content, because from a personalization standpoint and then deliverability standpoint, I mean, that's $1 billion business almost overnight. If you can deliver real time personalization without the cost of the asset production. Wow.
So think about that on a couple different fronts. One, just to your the future job titles, and I think this one's out there already. I've seen a couple people, but prompt engineer is probably the one that's come up since
Wait, what?
November.
Prompt engineer,
like, so writing the prompts in a way that the generative AI responds to, right? There is there's courses out there, right? You can go find them. I won't necessarily recommend, but there's courses that kind of like say, hey, what is the generative AI looking for, right? It's a form of SEO in essence, right? It's just what are the type of words it's looking for to get the best result, right? But I think prompt engineer is one, and I first heard that on a Benedict Evans podcast a few months ago, and then same one was a creative AI director, a creative generative AI director, right? Like, okay. How do we coordinate this? How do we get what we need? How, and then making sure it, fits the brand or fits what we want to do and all that. So I think those are a couple. But with the with the image generation, the video generation, it's there is that part of the conversation has to be had. Well, I think everyone would know, okay, if it generates someone that's famous, a celebrity just somehow gets generated. Well, you can't use that if they're not partnered with you, right? I think hopefully everyone would know that. But let's just say what is the situation if it occurs? Two competing brands, are prompting an image generation thing the same way, and just so happen at the same time launch a social media campaign with the same type of images. That's one. But then there was an article in the Wall Street Journal yesterday where there's going to be some court cases on this thing, but they're saying hey, a lot of these GPT, so GPT-4 and ChatGPT in the past, but especially anything that's grabbing images or text, it is grabbing from, it's not the live internet, right? Like ChatGPT and most likely GPT-4, while they didn't say it, is from September of 2021. But that's all being the learning model is all work that is out there. So of course there's a group out there that's saying, well, if something is generated by any of these generative AI platforms, and it generates revenue from someone else, we should get a cut of whoever, we need to know the sourcing. I don't know the answer how this is going to end up, but I think it's really interesting. Like, who uses it first? Is this like a trademark thing? If we launch something at the same time, just randomly competing brands, who owns the image? I think this one came up with the person that wrote a children's book with ChatGPT and then used Dolly for the imagery. No human. At the time he went to publish it, and the author was ChatGPT, and I think this was Amazon, the self-publishing, and they said no, it has to be a human name, so he had to put his. I think they've since changed that, but I mean, these type of questions are really interesting. Of, well, who owns the content, since it's generated from the platform, but it's pulling from existing material, right? Like, I suppose we'd have to look at some case studies from the music industry, and all songs are probably a variation of one that already exists. But what's the line between copying and inspired by? I guess.
Yeah, I mean, but default says, well, if it's piecing together a bunch of all this previous research, then as long as it's unique research, but then again, it's not a human doing it, right? And so default in my mind would say, no, it's creating something new, but never underestimate the powers of great lawyers and tricky lawyers trying to get money out of large brands.
One other just kind of random thing, because people are a lot concerned, well, this is going to take a lot of people's jobs, right? To be determined is everything, but there was a random, and I'm trusting this is true. I've seen it in a number of different spots. I saw it on Twitter first, but there was a stat that said, of the 270 jobs that were in the 1950 census, how many do you think were eliminated by automation looking at today, or the last census, I guess, in 2020? One.
As I say, next to none.
It's the elevator operator. Poor career path is no more, right? Now you can, so I think the most popular question in the comments was, well, bank tellers. Well, they still exist. It's just it's a different, like, the job evolved, right? There's a lot of different jobs that jobs have evolved. They haven't gone away, like the poor elevator operator in this case. But I think, now, will that hold true another 50 years from now? Probably not. But I think the point is, it's going to be an evolution of people's jobs to maybe truly give them the time for deep work, right? Or more creative work. And one of the things that's going to be interesting with generative AI, and going back to like the Microsoft and Google tools, and there's other ones that are coming out or are out, where you can summarize a meeting. So you get on a 20-person meeting, let's say on whatever platform, on Teams, on Google Meet, etc. And right after the meeting, or even if you come in late, it will give you a summary. It will transcribe what everyone said. It will create follow-ups based on what was said. So I think this is a different form of measuring true output, and probably you could see that over time. Let's say as something launches or doesn't launch from a product perspective, or sales are up or down, it probably could assess, well, who contributed the most, and not just who talked the most, like actually maybe maybe the quality of the comments, or who didn't say a lot. It's just there's a whole a bunch of questions on how this could impact performance reviews, right? And maybe the most talkative isn't the most productive. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. But it's really going to be interesting on this meeting summary piece. And again, I think what is defined as proprietary is a big question on how you evaluate risk, right? I mean, I think there's obvious things you wouldn't put on social media or maybe, in a generative AI, but like these meeting summaries, this is an interesting one. But I think this has a potential for performance evaluations to really have an interesting spin on them versus maybe how they're typically done over the past number of decades.
Yeah. Again, hitting another part of I see the company. I see it a chief AI officer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't, and it's coming so fast as usually we'd wait like 3 or 4 years, right? Like the chief digital officer took a while to come around and now everybody's putting them in place.
We like, and listen, I think this is a faster form of risk. And again, there's a lot of differences, but in some ways there's some similarities of what a lot of companies have had to do in the past in terms of um, just when the internet came out, like what is this? I don't trust it, right? When mobile phones came out, like I'm talking like from a data perspective. Am I going to put my data into this, right? So internet, the phone, even social media, and like some brands are like user generated content. Absolutely not. Like we have to control the message. So we've for the most part, everyone has evolved and mitigated the risk and figured out how to work with it responsibly in most cases. I think this is just another form of that, right? It's just moving so fast is what it's probably making most people uncomfortable. But again, the potential here is just fascinating. But
Yeah.
you really have to define what is proprietary right now, right? Like how do you define proprietary information, and then how do you disseminate this to everyone in your organization? Because you're going to have some that are not aware, but you're going to have on the other end of the spectrum people that are already trying it, and how do you balance that creativity and just trial, I don't want to say trial and error, but seeing what this could do versus, okay, let's make sure if something goes horribly wrong with the access to the to what everyone's prompts were or results, what are we comfortable with? So yeah, I think that, this is the ultimate balancing act, and it will differ by company depending on your your kind of your company culture.
Yeah. Awesome. What's top of mind for you? I picked your brain. Thanks. I mean, I can keep going, but because this topic is so big. But are there things I want to get, are there things that are like top of mind for you, like that we can chat about as well? I want to give you the opportunity as well to bring something up after I picked your brain for the past 40 minutes.
Yeah, and partially serious when saying this. You might have to release this podcast in the next couple hours, otherwise it might be outdated by the time it comes out.
Well, I'm actually just I'm gonna get the transcript, and then I'm just gonna upload it into GPT-4 and have it recreate you and I, and instant, take it down to like 25 minutes. It'll be great.
Perfect. Yes. Summarize it for the show notes.
Next time I'm going to go on there and I'm going to have it recommend an e-commerce topic, and we'll do it real time.
Ooh, I love
the hottest topic in e-commerce to talk about right now. And then you and I will just have to hash through it in real time.
I love it. Since you talked to there's so many brands, let's kind of combine two topics: retail media and the potential US TikTok ban. And that's potential, but funding, like, are you hearing that a lot of brands have a contingency plan if TikTok is banned? Like, where are they going to reallocate that to? And then even if that doesn't happen, what is the latest on retail media that you're hearing that people are they, not only from a funding perspective, but are they demanding or asking more of their agency partners or in-house teams of performance, looking at, how much are we spending? How well are we spending it? How nimble are we? Like, are you hearing teams and brands react at the speed of the news?
Yeah. So on the TikTok front, there's not a lot of, so overall advertising is really, really cheap on the platform right now. If you look at total cost of impression. And so there's money there, but there's not a ton because conversion rate is low. So brands are focusing on creating as many TikToks as possible in hopes that one goes viral and it shows up somewhere. Maybe it's Amazon, maybe it's Walmart, maybe it's a direct to consumer site. So there's this, if I pull out a thread that nobody will actually say from a digital marketer, is if the TikTok ban happens, it makes their life easier. Right. And now there's a chunk of brands out there that are looking at it and they've blown up. Right. These are companies that went from $200,000 overnight to $700,000. Right. Lots of money. This was a side gig and all of a sudden it made them enough money to do something, which is cool. Large brands, that there is a conversion. TikTok maybe buy it as a real trend. There's a lot of people trying to figure it out, but it will not have a major impact on current budget and spend right now. It'll just be one less thing for them to focus on while there's 100 things to focus on. So as we watch, so when you think about retail media and everybody launching it, like with Amazon continuing to shrink its number of warehouses, right? They just came out, they're going to close more warehouses, right? Fulfillment centers, whatever we want to call them. Yeah. Brands are really hesitant about being able to continue advertising when they go out of stock, right? They're dialing it back. So we just did a state of Amazon survey, and there's a lot of people are holding their budgets even. Now they're not everybody's dropping it, but they're not growing it. And if you're not growing it, that means it's a lower overall percentage. Well, then where's it going? And it's actually going to Walmart. That's what people are excited about right now. I mean, if you're in the home goods, if you're in like Home Depot already, right? You're, home, power equipment, power tools, whatever it might be, anything in a Home Depot, they figured it out. Like people like it. Most CPG is not there doing anything there. Fashion's not there. It's a very few categories that are actually in there. They have it figured out, but Walmart is what everybody's excited. Everybody's like, I think they figured it out. And just don't mess it up. Everybody's waiting for, a shoe to drop here, but I think they got to figure it out. I have a lot of stuff going on. That's going to simplify retail media because there's so much traffic, right? And that's growing faster than anything I see right now. Target's going to be around. They're going to lay some people off. I'm sure. I think I just read they want to cut like 300 million expenses over the next 3 years, or 200 million, some crazy number, but it's over a period of time. And so that, Target's got a distinct group. They're doing a great job. There seems to be a good consensus around how much you want to spend there, but it's Walmart. And so I think from the retail media side, like that's where the money's going to go. And if Walmart takes their time and they do it right, where they mess up is where they try to get way out over their skis, too quickly. They're listening to brands. They partner with brands. It's going to be weird. And I think back, even 10 years ago, Walmart was nobody's friend. Walmart was the bully in the room. Now everybody's rooting for Walmart, right? Be my friend, be my partner. And if they can, they're going to destroy it because, the whole, the Amazon thing just gets old after a while, right? They're not a partner. They're just not. And that's getting old and people are looking for a partner. So that's kind of, if I segregate the TikTok thing, I think secretly a lot of people think it happens. Yeah. Number one, for the kids at home, they're spending, 4 hours a day on it. Yes. And, it's going to remove that and get re-engagement. And the other one is, at least I don't have to worry about that platform as well and creating content for that platform. So one last thing, if it stays in this AI piece and you can start telling it to create TikToks, it's going to go bonkers. It's going to go bonkers.
Well, that'll be an interesting test how the algorithm responds to that. Right. So. And last thing on retail media, a common friend of ours, Andrew Lipsum, I think what he's putting out there in terms of in-store retail media, where brands need to focus, right, is really interesting and will really change the dynamic if that attribution credit, digitally influenced sales, whatever you want to call it, starts connecting the dots there. And I'm sure you would agree, kind of check out his work because where this could go and how he uses the example of when POS data was shared, from the register, and like how it impacted trade spend budgets in a positive way. Like it's just fascinating. The options for in-store retail. Again, if it's not creepy, like we were talking earlier.
Yeah, he's actually the episode right before this one. So if anybody's listening, if you want to go back,
great segue then. Yeah,
he's doing an awesome job. That was a super fun, and that was the whole title is Retail Media Deep Dive. Nice. So that's a great one if anybody wants to go back and listen to it. Well, like again, Todd, thanks for being such, a great friend, supporter of the network as a whole. Really enjoy these conversations. Obviously, we'll have you back a ton. But with that, thanks again, Todd. We're going to wrap up this episode of Digital Deep Dive. Thanks everybody for tuning in.